Hey y'all, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and today what I want to talk about is being spoiled as a photographer in the 21st century. I'm going to get into this really fast. I shoot digital cameras a lot and I've really gotten used to it, and I really enjoy using digital cameras at this point. But the other day I found this old Zeiss Ikon. It's a Contina. Yeah, it's a Contina. I think it's a Contina 2 technically, but I'm not real certain. This was a modern piece of technical marvel in the late 50s. This now is so antiquated, it's a struggle to use it to capture photos. I'm going to use this camera and take pictures with Ilford HP5. I have a quantity of this that I bought a couple years ago that I kept in the refrigerator to keep it cold. I want to go over the specs of this camera and kind of explain to you why we have it so good today. The first thing about this camera that comes to mind is it's completely mechanical. The next thing that we're going to talk about is they have integrated a light meter. Now, this is a light meter. This is what you normally will use, and this works just fine. This goes over 320 ISO. The one on the camera does not. That's how old this camera is. They didn't even build in ISOs over 320 because there wasn't any film that fast then. This meter works exactly like that one. It's got a gauge right here. This little sensor here, if I push this over, it exposes it for the low light scale, and then it's got a little green identity marker right here that tells you that's your bright light scale. And then when you spin the knob, you can see right here it goes into a green kind of range. The light meter is completely independent of the camera. It's not coupled to the camera in any way, shape, or form. It's just a light meter that they've stuck in the camera so that you don't have to carry an extra one with you. That was a big convenience if I had to guess. It has a cold shoe, not a hot shoe. There are no electrical contacts on this hot shoe. Cold shoe. It allows you to mount a flash, but there's no way to sync it that I'm aware of. I don't see any way to fire the flash. You got a tripod socket on the bottom. There's your film rewind button. You push that in, allows you to rewind the film. You got your film rewind and your spool take up right here. And it's got some really interesting little features, like if you turn it backwards, it rises up. See how it does that? That's so you can get a hold of it to rewind the film. It's brilliant. And then once you get done rewinding, you pull it up, and then there's a latch right here that you pull down, and that opens the film door and allows you into the camera. All right. And then you push this back down once you put a new roll film in it. You have shutter advance. It's nice, all metal construction. To zero out the frame counter, you just literally index it. You push it around. It's got a little set of teeth right here, and you just spin it and turn it until it lines up on zero once you load your roll of film in it, and then you're ready to start. You know, it's real simple to see your frame counter. Next thing that people have gotten used to having, because this is probably 2 generations older, maybe 1 generation older than I am alive, most likely 2 technically. Here's the hot rod functions that this camera has. All 3 main controls on the camera are right here on the lens. They're all stacked together. You have on the back, you have the aperture ring. This back ring is the aperture ring. The second ring is your shutter speed. You dial in the shutter speed you want. And then the front ring is the actual focus. It's this tiny little ring right in the front. And if you notice, it moves the lens in and out ever so slightly as you spin it. And it has the depth of field scale is built onto the front and the top, and they're engraved because apparently they knew you was going to be using that a lot. All 3 functions are on the lens proper, or on the front of the camera. There's no knobs on top to set anything. All the top has is the shutter release, the film advance, and the film rewind. Then in this center section, you have a cold shoe and a light meter. And that's all there is going on here. Here's the really kind of crux of the matter. You have to be really good at range estimation to make this thing work right, because the viewfinder is only for composing the image. It is zero to do with focus or depth of field preview or any of that. So if you're planning on like shooting up close or at a large open aperture, like if you shot this lens wide open and set it to f3, looks like f3.2, maybe f3.5, looks like it goes a little larger than that. By the way, it's a clickless aperture. If say you're going to shoot it wide open and you're going to do a portrait, you have about this much of a depth of field to make sure you get focus right. That's all. Unless you can accurately measure distance to the subject or you have a tape measure, you're going to miss focus. This is that simple. So in the book, it tells you that for general snapshot shooting, you set the aperture to f8 and you set your depth of field for infinity on one, and the other one is a little less than 3 meters. So you're looking at about 7 feet to infinities in focus, snapshot distances, and it'll be reasonably in focus with the center focus distance being about 5 meters. So let's say you're going to take a photo with this camera and you really need to nail focus on the eye. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Number one, it ain't gonna happen. Number two, the only way you can even remotely get close to that would be to shoot stopped way down and then set the center of the range distance to some kind of a meter distance, like 2 meters, and shoot it at maybe F11 at 2 meters. And that way, and of course, you're gonna be at like 1.3 meters to infinity will be in focus, with 2 meters being the center of focus. And then you could hold a tape measure about 6 feet away and you could be reasonably assured that the subject would be in focus. But yeah, there's no way to look through the viewfinder and confirm focus. This is literally just for composing the shot. That's all the viewfinder is for. I have seen zero like range finding functionality. If there was a rangefinder in here, there'd be another window where you can compare the images from the two so that you could get your range finding device going. But since there's only one window, there's no rangefinder here. So this isn't even a rangefinder. I don't know what you would classify this as. It's not an SLR, it's not a rangefinder. It's literally just a camera. That's it. I did send this one off to Zach's Camera. Shout out to Zach's Camera Repair. They done an amazing job. Basically, he took it apart, cleaned it, re-lubed it, got the timing on the shutter speed set. It works perfectly now. The cleaning job he done was phenomenal. It looks like a brand new camera. So yeah, if y'all have a vintage camera and you're thinking about trying to get it going, he was pretty reasonable on the price. It wasn't as high as I was expecting it to be, considering all the work involved. Yeah, you have to meter the scene. All right, once you've metered it, you have to set your aperture and your shutter speed, then determine how far you are to your subject, set your focus distance, and then take your picture. Wind your film, you know, and then if the light's changing, like today it's partly cloudy, you have to meter it when it's sunny and meter it when it's cloudy and figure out the differences. Set the camera up for the sunny and then figure, okay, it's say when the cloud goes over, I lose 2 stops of light. So that means I need to slow my shutter down 2 stops. So I need to go from 100 to 25. Now I'm at 1/25th and now I still have a proper exposure. It's a lot of thinking just to take pictures. With today, we have focus peaking and autofocus confirmation, like it won't release shutter without focus. I mean, the camera won't even take an out of focus picture if you tell it not to. We have so much going for us now that there is literally no excuse to take a technically bad photo now, and yet I still do. I don't know why. Somehow I still do. This was a learning experience for me. As you've seen with the photos kind of playing through while I've been talking, it can be done. You can get good photos with it, and snapshots are doable. You know, like I said, you just do zone focusing. And since it's a rangefinder-esque design, like the lens is really close to the film plane, the lens can be very small and still be a fairly large aperture lens. You know, f3.5 is only 1 stop under or a third of a stop under f4. So, you know, this is a little faster than an f4 lens. Look how small it is. It's a little tiny thing. This taught me, if you really, really want to understand how good we have it now, as photographers, use one of these. Shoot a roll of film through one of these cameras, and you will learn rapidly how convenient modern cameras really are. What do y'all think? Have y'all done anything to understand how good you have it as a photographer? I mean, like, did you ever do anything like this to get the appreciation for the period of time we live in? 20 years prior to this, people were still shooting on brownies real commonly. Trust me, the camera you have works wonderfully compared to this monster. With that, until next time, this is David, the Georgia photographer. I'm gonna tell you to get your camera out, no matter what kind it is, and go take a picture with it. All right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right, let's get some film in this bad boy.